Welcome back in, guys, to One Piece Chapter 1066. Today, I am joined by the infamous BDA Law. You guys might know him. He is a regular here on our weekly collabs, where we break down the latest chapter of One Piece. BDA, Zonin, Mr. KOL, do you want to shout yourself out if people don't know you?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can find me on my Twitch stream, Brago D Ace. I'm always playing Super Smash there. Once, it's crazy how many subs he has, but he always streams once a month, and I'm like, bro, what? Yeah, I mean that is technically that. I'm not even lying. That is where you'd find me, because whenever Brago does stream, I try to hop in and play Smash against him. Yeah, I mean, we're here, we're chilling,
Yeah. And if you guys don't know me, I'm the hostess with the mostest, JD Legend. If you want to check me out, go to twitch.com/JD Legend, where I do all my Twitch streams. So, to hop right into the chapter.
They're all going to watch this and be like, what is happening right now?
Imagine if they don't know who these guys are and we sound like absolute lunatics. They're other One Piece YouTubers, in case you don't know. So, going into the chapter, 1066, we have a major spoiler from Oda about the chapter. It is titled The Will of Ohara.
Yeah.
And if you just come in fresh from 1065, you're like, wait, like I got the wrong chapter. What's going on here? But lo and behold, that is not the case. It is actually about Ohara. And on the cover page, we see the 4 Germa siblings alongside Caesar, which looks like a brown cloud, flying to the Germa ships. And this looks like it is the end of their cover page story. Any closing thoughts on them?
No, I think... It's weird. It's weird because we talked about this, how I felt like the cover story should have already closed out. And I was wondering, like, what was left. And then the things that were left was Chocolate Town Frozen and then Aokiji kidnapping Pudding.
Yeah.
And even that cover story, the Aokiji and Pudding, was weird considering in that chapter, which I don't think has ever happened before, where a cover story and a chapter like coincide with their information. But like that one, it's almost like the cover story wasn't relevant because you get the information in the chapter, like that Pudding was captured. They could have just added a line, Aokiji did it or something, right?
Yeah.
But with this one, I want to think that it is ending. And I'm not the best, like, I might remember manga panels and chapters, and you can ask me, like, when did this happen? And I could tell you, like, within a chapter or two, the chapter number. With cover stories, I'm a little bit weaker, and I don't know how cover stories generally end. Sorry, I got, like, a bubble. I don't know how the series generally end. And with this, it's like, this could have been off-screened. There was, like, no reason to actually mention, like, returning to Germa with company. Like, that's like an assumed thing. You know what I mean? And so because we got that, I'm almost like, is there more? Like, is this just like a filler panel almost?
In a way, I'm surprised that we're just seeing silhouettes in the sky. Like, I was expecting, Judge waiting on a throne, the Germa siblings like walking in with all the soldiers around him. But that's not the case. Like, no, it's just here's silhouettes. They're back home. See you later.
Yeah, like, I think we might, maybe the way this extends is just like Caesar and Judge meeting, and then like some collaborative, like Caesar being the lackey carrying books, and then they're doing like a cloning thing, and then
it ties in with Egghead Island, maybe.
Yeah, like that kind of a thing where like, they were Mad's pirates, or mad pirates. They were mad. I mean, maybe they were mad pirates, but they were on the same Mads team, and so it's like a revival of that, and then we get Vegapunk in the chapter with all this different ways that could go down too, especially with this chapter with the, some of the reveals. But yeah, I'm gonna go on a limb. Maybe there's 2 more chapters.
2 more? Okay.
2 more. Maybe this entire year is just Germa.
I think it would be really funny if we got a cover page where Judge and Caesar are on the ship and they're like sweating bullets, like fanning themselves, and then we on the chapter we see Vegapunk like, yes, and here's the aircon, and here's how you turn down the AC, by the way. Like, just something really like something that parallels, like, okay, Judge and Caesar are kind of wacky scientists, but we have Vegapunk here who's an absolute genius. But I think in the actual raws of this chapter, I think it titles the cover page as extra. which usually happens whenever Oda is ending off cover pages as well.
Oh.
So there is some, minute details which could or could not, be proven true, that this is the finale of Germa's story.
Hey,
and if that's the case, do you
that.
have any candidates for next cover page, or what you would like to see next afterwards?
Yep. It's I mean, with any cover story, what typically seems to be the trend is we leave an arc.
Yeah.
Then the cover story fleshes out things left in that arc. This one was Germa, and then prior to that we got Bej and Chiffon, their story. And so I would love to see Momo, Shogun, Yamato adventures on Wano kind of cover story. I don't know if we would jump right into that. Maybe we start off with something lighter like Sukiyaki, or fan requests, and then Sukiyaki stuff, then Momo stuff, then Yamato stuff. But if we're to follow the birthday theory that you proposed last week in prior streams,
I'm still going strong. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still going strong.
Maybe Yamato shows up in the cover story.
I'm betting for it. I think a funny one would be if we get like the citizens of Ibisu Town, just like trying to like rationalize why Chopper, Miyagi, and Marco didn't help them. Like every chapter is them like thinking, like scratching their head, and it's like an image of Chopper, like Chopper save us.
Chopper, Law, Marco in a thought bubble.
Yeah,
and then they're just like praying. They're like, please come back.
Ibisu Town citizens are also running to the coast looking for them. Like, did they leave? Did the Straw Hats leave yet? Like, where are they? That'd be hilarious.
No, that's crazy.
I mean, obviously dark humor, but it would be kind of funny.
Yeah, Oda's just like that's the kind of thing though, because like it honestly sometimes feels like Oda is on Twitter. A lot of people feel like he's on Twitter and he sees like these jokes things.
Yeah,
and like it'd be hilarious if Oda actually played off of that and just been like, no, yeah, the fuck.
Forget about these guys.
Yeah, Chopper deserves to get put on trial for this shit.
Yeah. No, like they have like Wano has like the Straw Hat flag in the middle of Wano Kuni, and then you have the Ibisu Town citizens trying to tear it down. Like a rebellion.
These heroes, they abandoned us.
Save us. They're not my heroes.
Era of the Nika, I prefer the era of slavery. Like they just go backwards.
At least Kaido was at least acknowledging our existence. So onto the chapter. We have, man, the first like 5 minutes of this video are gonna be so wacky because Oda has a note for this chapter, and it says, "I got a new gas barbecue grill recently. I'm learning to cook meat via convection. I can't wait till everyone gets to try it."
That's a straight up meme, right?
Yeah, Oda's memeing on, like, what am I reading? He got a new gas barbecue grill, and it's like, all right, Oda, like, go off on the barbecue grill, I guess. I mean, Thanksgiving coming up. I don't know, maybe it's a good time for some grilled meat.
Yeah,
but
like,
do you have any deep theories on this?
I mean, on the surface, it's just like, I mean, has he never had, I mean, this is kind of disrespectful, Japanese barbecue. I was going to say Korean barbecue because that's what I normally have. But has he never experienced that? Because they use convection heavily.
He has to. He has to have had. Okay, so in Japanese culture, what is it called? In Japanese culture, street food is such a hot commodity there that there is no way he has not had like grilled meat before. He's probably just talking about him cooking it himself, but I don't know. It's just so wacky. Like, I didn't even notice this when I was reading the chapter.
Wait,
like,
I just realized
Oda had a note up there about this.
Oh, I always read the notes. Because there's always something interesting. But I just realized, doesn't he mean to say he learned to cook meat via conduction? Because a grill cooks with like touching, and that's conduction. Convection is an oven.
Yeah, convection's an oven. Dude, lo and behold, we can't understand Oda, right? Like how we're trying to predict the chapters of One Piece. Like, even Oda's lifestyle is catching us off guard, apparently.
Yeah.
Oda's entire lifestyle of cooking grilled meat is apparently like a mystery to us.
Maybe it like, and you know, going back to the theory thing, it's like I thought he was memeing on like the past and the future tech kind of thing, and so like maybe he's saying that like he's so far in the future he's in the past, and I don't know, like
yeah, it's Oda's metagaming One Piece right now.
1000%.
Yeah. So on to the actual chapter. we pretty much pick up where 1065 leaves off. We have Sanji's group learning about the Void Century a little bit, and Shaka tells them his theory, right? His theory of what happened. And to get this theory in the first place, it's so fascinating because he says he finds machinery and it was excavated in a certain place. And I'm just like, wait, do you think this machinery he's referring to here is the robot that we see at the end of the chapter? Or do you think it's a different piece of machinery, perhaps?
It's interesting because we're using what's it called, vague terminology when he could have easily just said, but on Egghead, machinery was excavated. Like, why not just say is Egghead, right? Yeah. Like, that's a little odd.
You could literally say, oh, it's a robot. I found it on like the island over here. Like, even if it's an island we haven't been to, like, he doesn't know that. Right?
Yeah, so, like, for him to say at a certain site, it's almost weird because it feels like we're talking about the one that Luffy was at, but, like, maybe he's talking about somewhere else, but I feel like it's almost the easiest just to say it's the one on Egghead.
I feel like he found it in a place other than Egghead.
Oh, and you think he brought it here?
Yeah, I think he brought it here to research.
Oh, but then that kind of doesn't work with what, because he was saying that like this island is actually in the past, but like, and so like it made it sound like the things on this island were here, right? Like that's kind of how.
The way I read it, at least, or the way I remember it could be the Mandala effect, but he kind of said like this island has technology similar to that of the past. He didn't say this island is of the past. And then even when Bonnie recalls the island, she even remembered it as a shack, right? Like it was like a busted up. Yeah. When Bonnie, the chapter after Bonnie was changing clothes, or maybe even that same chapter, Bonnie mentioned that when she was last here, it was actually just a rundown laboratory.
Like
it didn't have any of this technology. So that's why I believe that he found this machinery, whether it's the robot, whether it's like a Brita filter water, whatever thing. Like, he brought it back here, and he researched it, and that's how he got this tech. That's kind of how I'm inferring it. I just wish you would say, like, robot or something, right? Like, I mean, lo and behold, if Vegapunk had multiple things from the Void Century, I still wouldn't be surprised. But it's just for, like, clarification purposes. Like, Oda's keeping this vague, you know, potentially for a really good reason. Maybe the island is yet to be revealed. Maybe it's a place we've already been to. Who really knows? But yeah, he says he found this machinery. And then he goes on and tells us his theory about how he thinks the world government was formed and about the Ancient Kingdom, which is not new information. We've known this for a while now, but it's the first time that the Straw Hats are actually hearing this because we learned about this back in Marie Joie.
Right.
And I think what's most interesting about the dialogue drop is that we see the Straw Hats' reactions. And, you know, Nami, Usopp, whatever, Sanji, sure. Frankie, you know, saying, whoa, this is an epic and romantic tale. And the translator note, at least not for the chapter I'm reading right here, the translator note actually says that the way they say romantic is the same kanji you'd use for romance dawn. And I'm like, so it's actually a romance tale rather than romantic tale. And I'm like, all right, Oda, okay, pulling something out here. Yeah, and it would make sense if the very first chapters of One Piece correlate to the end of it as well. That's a very Oda thing to do.
Yeah.
So what is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped on that word too because like I had a video talking about I mean, Hidden Island had a Rome Piece video, and I don't think in his first one he included this comment, but then when we talked, I brought it up that it's like romance dawn is from of the Romans. Like that's actually the word, like the etymology of the word Romans. And so that's like going back to the Davy Back fights being related to the Olympics. And we just talked about the eternal flame, right? The undying flame. That's a part of the Olympics too, right? Like the passing on of the torch.
Oda's a Rome fan.
Yeah. And I think I think this is like a quadruple entendre for like, I don't even know, like, you know, I as much as people say like, you know, One Piece isn't about a romance, like actual like love and stuff like that, I think that there will be an element of that kind of romance in the last saga. I think it makes a lot of sense,
like that a love story.
Yeah, I think there will be, and there has been throughout the story. It's just not it hasn't been like a particular driving force of the main plot, but that's not to say it hasn't been a driving force of some of the plot.
And
like,
another thing to keep in mind is that when Oda mentioned like, hey, One Piece isn't a romance, that was referring to people asking Oda if Luffy would ever fall in love. And, right. You know, in regards to Luffy, he said, yeah, that's not how Luffy actually operates. So other characters falling in love, maybe Void Century people falling in love, that isn't super far-fetched, right? Like, Oda's not tossing the entire concept out of the window like Vegapunk in his brain. Like, that's just how it is. And no, I was gonna add, like, here's like a funny idea that I'll elaborate. I've talked a little bit about in my videos. I have another one that I'm gonna talk about, but essentially, like, if you think about it like this, right? You know how like fishermen, fishermen, like, you're an octopus fisherman and I'm a seahorse fisherman, right? And we have a kid, and then they're a goldfish, right? That's just how, that's like normal. How, like, it doesn't matter what lineage we are, as long as someone in our past has that lineage, our kid taps into one of the many like people in our lineage, right? And so I was laughing, is like, what happens if you get like a fisherman and a human union, right? Let's say in the Void Century, they don't know about fisherman lineage. Like, this is a new thing of the first fisherman woman or something, and then a human dude. They have a kid. The kid comes out looking at like nothing like the dude. But for the humans in One Piece, they have a nuclear family structure where it's like your kid looks like your parent and stuff like that. But fishermen, they don't. So I was like laughing. I was like, "Yo, that'd be so crazy if we get a story where like I'm not the father."
Yeah, like a war starts because they're just like, "This isn't my kid." And it's like, "No, this is how it works."
This is how fishermen work. Please listen to me.
Yeah, and that's also how minks are too. The minks have the same thing. And I was like, that's such a like because Den in, I think it's chapter 616, he literally was like, I don't know what's wrong with you humans. Like, we just accept everybody. Like, we're all from the same thing. We don't cause that much of a deal if our kids don't look like us. We have a better understanding of how the world works, something like that. And I was just like laughing. I was like, that would make so much sense for like a huge war to start off, something stupid like that.
I mean, the Mori show would go wild on Fishman Island.
Yo, you're right.
Like, are you actually the father of this fish child? Who knows? Yeah, I know you're a goldfish, but your octopus dad likes to say otherwise. Like something wild. But also, one more thing about the Ancient Kingdom, because I kind of skipped over it. But Shaka said, to ensure the ideas of the Ancient Kingdom wouldn't live on, they erased it from history, right?
Right.
In some other translations, instead of ideas of Ancient Kingdom, they actually worded it, even in the Raws, depending on how you translate it, you can even say wills of the Ancient Kingdom.
Oh.
So that's like, oh, okay, all right. The will of the Ancient Kingdom, the will of D, I don't know, man. Like, that's kind of sus, right?
Oh yeah, wait, that's a big translational difference.
So like I said, multiple scans. I read like 4 or 5 different ones. I even have somebody who translate the Japanese to English. So I am curious to see what the Viz goes with.
Yeah.
And you could even like parallel ideas to wills as well. So that would be kind of curious.
Yeah, no. I see that, but wills and ideas in One Piece has a different connotation. If we're saying wills, to ensure that the wills of the Ancient Kingdom wouldn't live on, that actually makes more sense.
Yeah.
In the context of this. And then they erased every trace of it from history. I mean, both ways make sense, but the will part is just like on the nose, considering like that at Marineford, that same terminology was used with when Whitebeard was saying like, Roger's waiting for a certain man, someone's going to inherit his will, someone's going to inherit Ace's will, the world government tries to snuff them out. Always it fits.
Yeah, the world government wants to snuff out the will of the Ancient Kingdom.
Yeah, so
So on to the next page, we see Usopp saying he didn't want to hear any of this. He didn't hear any of it. Please erase this from my memory. And then I love what Shaka says. He's like I said, this is just a theory, right? This is just a conjecture. Like, I'm not 100% sure. But let me tell you right now, it's actually truth, because the government confirmed it by erasing Ohara. And this is a very Ohara-focused chapter. And I love how he even says, you know, to parallel the Ancient Kingdom's will living on, he says the will of Ohara also lives on.
Right.
And to explain this more, he goes on and describes his relationship with Ohara, and specifically Dr. Clover, who has his own pirate ship. Dude, yeah. Dr. Clover on the high seas. This guy, like, I love Dr. Clover. Good backstory, great father figure, great archaeologist. But great this man as a pirate?
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't use his Clover symbol as his Jolly Roger.
Bro,
instead, he just wrote his name on
the
it.
First pirate that he runs across with a pistol, Clover's folding, dude. Like,
I mean, Clover, we gotta put respect on him too, because he was incarcerated 10 times. 10 times.
10 times. Well, and all I gotta say here, you know, I'm Marine agenda. I'm a Marine fanboy. Why do we not have harsher laws toward this guy never got out of prison?
It's because Clover is built different, bro. That's why.
Dude, but like, you know, jokes aside though, like, this guy's researching the ancient history. He's an archaeologist. Like, I would be afraid of this man. You know, arrest him once and you're like, okay, we'll let him go. Whatever. He's just the innocent man. He's not strong. Let him go. Arrest him twice, 3 times, 4 times. Like, bro, this guy's up to something. Like let's never let this man out of Impelled Down, right? Like they let him loose so long that he almost uncovered the Void Century, bro. This guy's a menace. He's too good.
You know what this implies? I just realized.
Yeah,
Clover has a bounty.
Oh, yeah, he probably has a bounty. I mean, he got arrested 10 times though. Like, how high could it be?
It has to be incredibly high if he escaped 10 times.
Wait, but did he escape or did they just let him go? They never really say, right? He was incarcerated on at least 10 occasions, and then by the time he settled down, so it never really said if he escaped prison. Dude, imagine this guy's like Shiki, like the one man that escaped Impelled Down so many times they had to like pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, they just erased it from history.
Yeah, they erased Dr. Clover escaping from prison, bro. Ain't no way. I don't believe it.
Yeah,
he's like Kaido. This man is like Kaido.
And I'll be honest with you, right? When they said the will of Ohara lives on, yeah. I had a theory, and we talked about this on the live stream, live reaction. I brought on Mosh DMC because him and I had a theory regarding the will of Ohara living on. He has a video talking about it. And regardless of what I thought, actually backing up one thing, I actually thought that a professor from Ohara was still alive because of the specific wording that was used. It was said that like when a specific professor or scholar shows up, we'll learn the truth of devil fruits. And everyone thought that was Dr. Vegapunk. But the thing is, in the story, time and time again, they separate doctor scientists from scholars and professors. It's Professor Clover and Dr. Vegapunk. And so because of that line, I've talked about this before, that I thought that they were going to be alive. But even with all that in my mind when I was reading it, I still didn't expect to get a Clover backstory like this.
Yeah.
Bro. Like Clover's backstory
700 chapters left later, bro. Like, here we are.
Yeah. And like, I'm happy for him. You know what? I'm happy for him. You see that he's smiling on this ship, bro. He's having a time of his life.
He's having fun.
Good for Clover, bro.
Good for Clover. He even had like a first mate, a second mate behind him, bro. Like he had a crew.
Yeah, he did. This is crazy. Not gonna lie.
So after Vegapunk shares his history with Clover, he tells us that he went to Ohara after the Buster Call. Months afterwards, he went there and he realized that the books that they were trying to save, 700 chapters ago, were actually saved. They threw them in the lake and they survived. And when he got there, he was shocked to see giants pulling the books out of the lake. And these giants, we got the Straw Hat Grand Fleet out there, bro. Like, I know you have some reservations about it, but in my opinion, the giants very much look like Harujin, Stanson, and Gerd. Like, it is actually 1-to-1 on the designs. there's nothing that I would look at that panel and not say that they're anybody else. Like, I mean, and here's the thing too, like if Oda wanted to draw a generic giant, he definitely could. Mm-hmm. But it really seems like he went out of his way to make them the Straw Hat Grand Fleet giants.
Yeah. No, I mean, in terms of like reservations, I think mainly it's like this chapter is so packed that I don't even have the time to like look at and understand this at all.
Yeah.
But I can see it, and you know what? That's a great way to tie everything together, right? It'd be interesting because like didn't Hyrudin meet like Robin and stuff like
that? That's the one plot hole I kind of mentioned. I was like, okay, so if Hyrudin was there and he has the hairstyle, he even has the same helmet as Hyrudin. And, you know, giants live forever. They don't really age that much, so it could happen. So if Hyrudin did meet Robin at, you know, Dressrosa, which they did, they literally did meet, why did he not mention anything? Like, Robin she has the bounty she has during that time because she was a survivor of Ohara. It's in her epithet, demon child, devil child, Nico Robin.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that he didn't mention anything is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe he forgot. Maybe it slipped his mind. I'm not too sure. But even if we ignore Hyrudin's design, like Gerd is a really big one, and even the helmet of Stanson is another big one too. Yeah. So it's almost like it's literally 1-to-1, to where I can't imagine it's any other giant, because we've seen Oda draw generic giants before, other giants, but it looks like he went out of his way to draw them specifically.
Yeah, and going back to the point being like, if the overall point of these scenes is that the books are maintained, and so like, you know, like, yeah, secrecy aside, they're not just out there telling anybody, but if they come across Robin, who again has the epithet, everybody knows who she is, where she's from, it's like, hey, the will of Ohara lives on. I have the library. Yeah. You know, like
they could have said something.
Yeah. And you know, the problem though with Robin is that her character's shrouded in this like sort of half retconny kind of thing, because like the Sabo situation, it's like she just didn't tell Luffy the entire time, hey, your brother's alive, and it's like we just say like, oh, like Sabo said don't tell him, and it's like fine, but it's like that's kind of like a big deal. Like
I mean, yeah, she didn't want to spoil the secret, but you're right. Robin, I wouldn't say retcon, but her plot is a lot more wishy-washy than others.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it could be due to like last-minute decisions. Like maybe when Oda first introduced Hyrudin, he didn't have the idea of him being one of the giants that fished out the books. Maybe he was a different giant, but Oda was like, okay, no, never mind. I changed that. Let's make it Hyrudin, and I'll fix that later.
Yeah, and like and you know, I want to let the people know, like, what I'm saying right now, and I think a lot of times we talk about the chapter, we are discussing like off of our initial reactions, like synthesizing it isn't exactly what we do here. I mean, we end up doing a lot of synthesis just with how much we talk about it, but another thing that I want to point out is like, you know, now that we know that Dragon is associated to Vegapunk to like such a degree, it's weird like Robin doesn't know any of that. You know,
like what did she do during the 2 years, bro? Like, was she mute? Did she not talk to Dragon? Like, what did she actually get from the Revolutionary Army? Because she hasn't really dropped any revolutionary lore, right?
Yeah,
I mean, she could have been in Tequila Wolf for a long time. We don't really know the time frame of it. But we like to imagine she got saved from there pretty early on to the 2 years.
Like, just like, I'm not saying she needs to say a lot. Like, she could spoil the plot heavily, which is why it makes sense why she's not doing that. But it's like some things, right? Like her, like, I don't know, like Dragon knows about Ohara. So how come Dragon didn't tell Robin? Like,
literally Robin in this chapter said, wait, Dragon knew Clover? Like, did Dragon not say this? Like, I know Dragon is like a tight-lipped guy, and even Ivankov was like, oh yeah, Dragon never talked about his family. But it's also weird because in this chapter we learn that Vegapunk knew about Luffy. So Dragon did talk about his son and his family.
Oh, so yeah, you're right.
Like, what is going on? Like, revolutionary lore in One Piece is one of the strangest, like, topics.
Yeah, because
like they could be revealed, they couldn't be revealed. It happens one day, it doesn't happen the next day. It's the wishy-washiest part of One Piece, in my opinion, which is fine, right? It's still, like, it doesn't ruin the story.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, you would think that at some points, like, it doesn't have to be a big lore drop from Robin about dragons or about the Revs, but at least 1 or 2 times throughout the time skip, you think Robin would be like, oh yeah, by the way, the revolutionaries mentioned this. By the way, the revolutionaries did this. And it's like, no, that's not prevalent at all.
Which is interesting because all the other Straw Hats had like, oh, I learned this from my time on the archipelago. And then Nami's just like, oh, my time on Witheria, all this weather.
Yeah, Frankie's like, oh, look at these nipple lights. Like,
yo, like, I mean, but even Frankie had like flashbacks of like, of some things from Karakuri Island. But like, yeah, with Robin, it's like, it was almost lost, but to the point where and like, again, like, I'm not shitting on this chapter. I just feel like the fact that like I can think of those things like off the top real quick with like those are points that would have, if they were filled, would have benefited this chapter because it would have been this would have had a way different context. And then like on top of that, like the whole dragon situation, knowing Vegapunk, something I was thinking about is like, does nobody there know about Kuma's situation? He's just keeping everyone in the dark about like Kuma and Vegapunk because everyone like Sabo's like riled up, and it's like Dragon doesn't seem that riled up. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's because Dragon actually knows the truth of Kuma's situation. Sabo's the second in command. He doesn't know. Like,
he's the chief, bro. Like it's weird. Like the people Dragon tells and doesn't tell information to is just wild. It's almost like Luffy making decisions, right? Like it's like spur of the moment, like, hey, you get to know but you don't, right? Like it's just strange. I mean, we could count it as a plot hole, we could count it as Dragon being weird, or maybe Oda trying to like make last minute decisions. We don't really know. Like it could be cleared up. We have to wait till later to really put the nail in the coffin. But lo and behold, the Giants are pulling it up, and the thing with this is that if this is Haruden, I would really enjoy that, because not only does it tie the Straw Hats to Elbaf, but in a way, this also ties Buggy to Elbaf. Because Haruden and the new giant pirates were under Buggy for a minute. Yeah. So I mean, now that Buggy is, I don't know, going after like bounties or anything, like maybe he or Crocodile or even Mihawk would want to go to Elbaf, knowing that the books of Ohara are there. Not saying that is the case, but
it's an option.
It's an option.
Yeah, I would go out on a limb and say that even if there's a connection in terms of like degrees of separation, you know, like Buggy's had someone underneath him with this information that is definitely there, but I don't think it matters. I don't think that any point that information would have been divulged to him. It wouldn't make sense necessarily for that to happen, especially if we're considering that if this is Haruden, he didn't even tell Robin.
He didn't tell Robin. He didn't tell Luffy.
Yeah.
When he knows that Luffy was trying to be king of the pirates and he needs this information at some point. Yeah. That'd be crazy till God Buggy first.
Didn't Haruden did say something? Maybe it was to Usopp saying something like, I got like, you know,
he told Usopp he'd be waiting for him on Elbaf, I believe. I could be off, but I know they mentioned something about going to Elbaf together.
There's something Haruden said like, yo, I got you, bro. You know, like one of those things where it's like if you came over to the tri-state area, I'd be like, I got you. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Which doesn't mean much, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna spot you your meal. I'm gonna spot you a drink. Like what? That's like 1/1000th of his own drink, like because he's a giant. Good one.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll buy you a meal. You could take a small bite out of this giant piece of meat I have. Like, come on. I thought that was kind of funny. But moving on though, like past the Giants, Dragon makes a big reveal. And as much as I want to focus on Dragon and him not having any tattoos and him being boss as hell, Vegapunk, I'm not gonna lie, takes up the entire panel. like every time I try to look at Dragon, my eyes go to Vegapunk, right? Like Dragon's like, hey, my eyes are up here, but I just keep on looking at Vegapunk's dang head. It looks so wacky, and I love it, but I just can't stop staring at it. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, maybe Vegapunk isn't human, maybe he has a devil fruit, but the thing is that I genuinely believe he's just a human with a big brain.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree. I don't necessarily want him to have a devil fruit. I think it's better for his character in general if he doesn't have one. I am in the same boat during my live reading. I just kind of I had to tell people, I'm like, yo, I'm not looking at this character right now. This it's not adding anything yet. So when we have to deal with it, we'll deal with it. And I think that was the right choice considering the ending of the chapter. But yo, I don't know what people say. I smoke crack or whatever the fuck to make my theories, bro. They want the good stuff. I'm telling you,
hit up Oda, bro. Hit up Oda if you want the good stuff. Because I mean, look at this. And the thing is, bro, looking at his design, not only is the spiky hair crazy, but Oda gave this man a widow's peak.
The biggest widow's peak, like Vegeta,
it is peeking down the panel. You can't even see the end of it.
Vegeta's so jealous right now. Vegeta used to be the king of widow's peak.
All right. Hear me out though. Do you think Vegapunk is picking up women though? Vegapunk walks into a bar, his head hits the ceiling. Do you think he's picking up people at the bar?
I mean, have you seen the man's tongue? Have we
Dude, there was
ladies
one comment.
would want to sit on this, bro. They got a whole saddle, bro.
there was one comment on my on one of my videos. I thought it was hilarious, but somebody said, hey, Big Mom actually sat on his head and then had pedospeto. I was like, what is going on? This design is so crazy. And here's the thing. You can explain the head. You can explain the legs. You can explain the body. He's long legs, big brain. How do you explain the tongue, though? There's nothing in One Piece that can explain the tongue.
Yeah, usually I have the answers. There ain't no way, bro. This chapter was one of those chapters I literally out loud said, nobody asked me a question about this.
We are so serious. We have giants. We have, a bunch of sad scenes with Ohara. And then Oda hits us with this, bro. Casually. Here's Vegapunk's design. And you know what the thing is, though? Is that, the reason why I say it's a big brain rather than it being a devil fruit or another race is because there is precedent to Vegapunk's design and him having a big brain. And do you know what that is? Or who it is, I guess.
The Space Pirates?
No. Well,
the
Space Pirates is a big one. Fukurokuju.
Yeah.
Did you know that Fukurokuju had a normal shaped head? And then after he learned every ninjutsu known to man, or apparently self-claimed, he got a elongated head after that. So we can assume that getting a lot of knowledge does cause you to have a big brain. And here's a bad future, a bad timeline of One Piece. Let's say Robin does go to Elbaf and read all the books. Do you think end of story Robin is going to have a head like that?
Oh my goodness, that is...
Yeah, do you think end of story Robin is going to look like that? Let's be real. If she reads all the books in Ohara, she becomes #1 archaeologist. Is this a possible future for our girl Robin?
It wouldn't change a thing. I'm gonna
really?
say that.
Hey, people like foreheads, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we were some of those people earlier in other calls.
We've talked to forehead people on the live streams of One Piece, so they exist. They exist.
Yeah, they're in the chats. I mean, there's a lot of vocal people for foreheads.
Vocal minority.
Yeah.
So with that being said, though, you did bring up another good point, a real point, minus the forehead talk. That Vegapunk's design was kind of teased in the Jolly Roger of the Space Pirates. Because when you go back to Anel's cover story, you do see that they have a skull, crossbones, but the skull has that giant, massive head. Do you think Vegapunk might have some actual canon ties to space pirates or what's going on in the moon? Or do you think that's just foreshadowing and that is still a throwaway cover story? What do you think?
Maybe whoever invented all this stuff in the past became a space pirate. Like, they're just done with Earth and they just left. And like, that, I mean, who started all that stuff? If that person had, I mean, at this point, we just gotta like look at this big brain situation literally and just be like, okay, so then that space pirate was probably one and the same. Like, you know, like, looked exactly super like smart. Vegapunk, super smart. And you know, going back to it, I think it's interesting, right? Because Vegapunk touts himself as knowing all fronts, like all disciplines of knowledge, and that's why his brain is so like, I can't even look. I'm just why am I
click up the page?
Yo, like, I just clicked up. Like, I can't
your wife is calling you like, hey, stop looking at him.
It's so ridiculous, and his eyebrows are so far up.
They're like, so crazy, bro.
Whatever.
It's a great design. I mean, 10 out of 10 design in my opinion. It's funny. It does the job.
I love what we did at the end of the chapter with it, though. But it makes sense. Like the thing is what you said. Everything makes sense except for the tongue. But like, I guess the tongue will be like he talked so much, which is funny because I made a joke saying that when I was a kid, the dentist said I had a really big tongue, so I always called it a tongue jail. So I had something that keep my tongue inside my mouth, and I felt like this is a little bit of personal attack, and I was like, bro, my tongue ain't like that.
Why they got to bring in my childhood like that?
Yeah. I was like, whoa. Like, but I mean, like you said, like everything else made sense except for the tongue. I still don't know. And then like, I think Brandon King brought up a point saying like, wait, if his tongue is like that, he can't speak. How is he speaking?
And it hurts to talk, bro. He bites it every time.
Yeah, honestly, it'll be. Like, do you think? Oh my god! Do you think in the anime it's gonna be like hidden thought? Like, is he gonna have like an accent like that where he's just talking with his tongue?
I feel like if he did, they would have said something in the manga already. Because whenever a character has an interesting dialect, they usually say, "Hey, this person's speaking in this dialect. This person is speaking with a lisp. This person is, speaking a little bit off." They didn't say anything for Vegapunk, so I'm expecting him to have a somewhat normal voice.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like imagining like a Heimerdinger kind of voice right now.
Oh yeah, so Heimerdinger is the reason I got confuzzled with like Eureka being Archimedes, but like Einstein also said it too for a few discoveries, but it's because of Heimerdinger that because he always said all the things.
Good old League of Legends always catching back up to us.
Yeah,
so
played a lot of Heimer.
Going on with the chapter. We learned that Dragon actually offered Vegapunk a role in the Liberation Army, which we'll get to when we talk about the revolutionaries here in a minute. And Vegapunk kind of disses his amount of wealth, saying, yo, like, you guys are kind of poor, bro. Like, you don't got the money. You can't hire Dr. VP. And I thought that was kind of interesting because even now, I don't think the revolutionaries have a lot of money, right? And in a way, this kind of makes me think about Lindbergh and the way that all of the revolutionaries' tech is very steampunk in nature, right? Mm-hmm. Like from the goggles to the equipment to their machines, jetpacks, like everything about the revolutionaries is steampunk. And I'm like, maybe it's because they're just actually poor. Like they have no money to afford real technology. So this could be like a weird way to like bring that up. Like maybe if Lindbergh had resources, he would be creating, I wouldn't say pacifistas and seraphims, but maybe something akin to that. Maybe like, I don't know, a revolutionary robot. But yeah, do you have any takes on this, the poorness out there, Par?
That part was kind of like something that we low key understood from like his expositions earlier. But I do like that how this was used to like Dragon's kind of like insulting him, like you became one of the lapdogs. It's like, you fucking idiot, like that's not what I'm doing. Stop trying to make it seem like that.
a gold digger.
And what he boiled it down to is saying that like, and this was really insightful for his character, is like the world government is an insanely huge organization and there are plenty of decent people on the inside that can be reasoned with. And then he says, don't lose sight of the end goal. And that one was like, whoa.
I think they want to reform the world. And in a way, like Vega, Dragon is doing it on the outside with the revolutionaries and liberation army. And I feel like Vegapunk's doing it from the inside. And that's why I'm just like, after reading that dialogue, I'm like, yo, I really do feel like, and this isn't a new thing, this isn't like a new theory, but I feel like Vegapunk does have pretty deep connections with Sword even.
Yeah, it would make sense, right? Like, someone as smart as him has all the connections, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't make sense one way or the other for him to be so involved. And like he said himself, there's so many different groups within the world government and reasonable people too. In my opinion, Sword is probably the most reasonable group that we can.
Sword, Kuzan, Akainu, Kizaru, Green Bull.
Yeah.
Fujitora even, pretty reasonable guy. Sengoku.
Very.
Yamakaji.
All reasonable, all equally reasonable people.
Momonga, yes.
This list was all balanced. No bias, no agenda.
No bias, no agenda. You can reason with these gentlemen.
Yeah. And what's interesting here, and we're finally at the part where it's like, what is Dragon and Vegapunk's previous relationship? And I feel like it just makes the most sense that Dragon. Well, it doesn't make the most sense because you brought up a point. It's like, if Dragon was on Mads, then Queen and Queen, Judge, why didn't they bring Caesar? Why wouldn't they ever bring up Luffy's association with Dragon, especially after it was publicized at Marineford? But it's like, if it's not Mads, then what is their relationship between Dragon and Vegapunk that they like Vegapunk says, I thought you hated war, right? Like, to say something like that, that's like, that reminded me of that line with us when everyone was thinking that Sabo did it on like Luffy's crew, and then Luffy randomly had like a psychiatrist take where he's just like, no, like Sabo's, the way he was like brought up, he would never, he's just trying for liberation, guys, come on. And I was like, whoa, well,
where'd this come from, bro?
Yeah. And like, I'm not saying it's that deep for Vegapunk. Vega's a very smart person, but like they're building up this relationship where they're even like even the way they're sitting down, it reminds me of like Roger and Whitebeard.
They're chilling, bro.
Yeah. And so I don't really know what it means like for them to have this kind of like association with each other.
I could see them both as people that are trying to go for peace, because it sounds like Dragon knew Vegapunk before he started working or picking up jobs for the world government, because he even gives him kind of like, he gives him some feed for that, saying, hey, like, you're a lapdog for the world government, like, what are you doing, Vegapunk? So it sounds like he knew him before any of this.
And I feel like that's,
so maybe he was just like a random scientist before all this too. I have no idea.
Yeah, and going back to Dragon possibly being on Mads, like, I mean, to for the viewers who haven't heard this take, it was essentially that, like, Weatheria. So like, Nami went there for time skip, but it's like Kuma sent her there, and for Kuma to send them there, it almost seemed like Kuma had a prerogative in sending them there. I mean, he was sent there for a reason, right? I would imagine Dragon might have had some involvement there, but even that aside, Kuma had to have some familiarity with Weatheria, or it could be that Dragon had familiarity with the places that the Straw Hats went to, or the people, or the places. And when Nami went to Weatheria, they imprisoned her and were like, this information could be devastating in the wrong hands. And for something like that to happen, there's like a precedent, right? Because those are like those old dudes like were so gullible and so like good spirited, I guess. Like, they were just believing in anything, that they like immediately imprisoned Nami as if there was a precedent. And I was like, I've always thought like maybe Dragon was the first person to go to Weatheria outside of the people there, and he learned all the weather stuff, which is why we get all these associations with weather, and him being like a specific weather scientist, like a meteorologist, or like, generally like, just that kind of environmental science, whatever you want to take it, that is the link of how, like, because with Vegapunk, they have the aircon, which is like climate control. And it's like, we haven't seen Judge, Caesar, Queen ever even touch that. But if Dragon was that, then that would be like the link of like, oh, Vegapunk is all of the scientists just all in one, and Dragon is specifically for weather. And I think it fits like thematically. But going back to like this chapter part, I feel like Caesar and Queen and Judge would have regarded Vegapunk as a government lapdog too, right? Like that's kind of like their take on that as well, like Vegapunk's involvement with the government. Or am I misremembering that?
No, you're right. They never once say Vegapunk's name in the same sentence with the world government.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, that dang Vegapunk, he's at it again.
Yeah. So like even the way Dragon responded in this situation on Ohara, with that, it's kind of like, like you said, this is Vegapunk after he started taking orders from the world government, which means prior to that it was Mads, but what was prior to that? Like, and Dragon is younger than Vegapunk too as well. So it's so interesting to think about like where, because it almost makes it feel like we are going to get that information of what predated the relationship, right?
And like the thing with Dragon is that they could have said, oh, Dragon's like a random marine, Dragon is a wandering traveler, but that's not the case. He's a liberation officer, head army, of the freedom fighter. And then it's like, hey, by the way, after a couple years after this, he formed the Revolutionary Army, which is a pretty big reveal too.
Yeah, 1 year. That's kind of crazy.
1 year. And then it's like, okay, so if he formed the revolutionaries after a year or within a year, then what is the Liberation Army? What is the Freedom Fighters? Like, who are they? Like, where do they come from? What kingdom do they work with? What do they even do? Like, where are they now? Like, while Oda gave us a lot of answers with the revolutionaries, he gave us a lot of questions about Dragon and about Vegapunk and everything before this, too.
Yeah. I just had a thought. Like, maybe the freedom fighters. Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe. Ooh.
And here's a good one, too. Do you think Dragon, Vegapunk, Dragon or even Vegapunk, do you think they had an interaction with Roger that we'll see at some point? Considering the timeline?
Vegapunk, maybe. Dragon, it seemed like Dragon was at the execution, but it didn't seem like everybody there had to have a prior relationship to Roger for it to be significant.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna ignore the very obvious elephant in the room that Dragon looks like a certain someone.
Oh, my gosh, you're talking about rocks.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at him, bro. Like,
you're talking about rocks. But okay, so around the time of this flashback, though, is there also around the time when Rox was going on a rampage, wasn't it?
No.
Or was that even further back?
This is 22 years ago.
Okay.
So God Valley was 40 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's so long.
Yeah. So this is right when Roger became King of the Pirates, I believe.
Okay, so God's Valley happened 20 years even before this flashback, right?
Yes.
Wait, then Rox would be like, or I mean, if it was Dragon, then Rox would be like 14 years old.
Wait, run that back to me.
If Rox is Dragon, then at the time of God's Valley, wouldn't Dragon be like 14 years old then?
Bro, I don't know. All I know is that Dragon's probably Rox's kid. Like, I know that theory has already existed, but it's like, if Oda's literally just drawing this man 1-to-1, like the same hair, the same face. Like, if this dude laughs maniacally, then like it's gonna look like the silhouette, right? Like, when you ask me how they interact with Roger, I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do think that that the freedom fighters thing is really interesting because when you rebrand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is a video. I'll just say it here so that so I can pee on my territory. But what we find out about the revolutionaries from Ivankov is that they don't fight for freedom, right? Because they give the people the power to fight for it themselves. So Dragon being a part of the freedom fighters, which implies that they were the ones fighting for freedom, that tells me that Dragon hit a wall or hit a problem within this story that made him brand change to the Revolutionary Army, where the Revolutionary Army, their motto is not to fight for freedom, it's to allow people to fight for their own freedom. It's a very different concept than the freedom fighter. I mean, me and you were talking about the whole Marvel stuff and how that relates to the freedom fighter aspect here, but where my mind was going to was that their freedom fighter, so the Revolutionary Army, Ivankov said, like, you know, they allow the people to get the motivation to fight for their own freedom, right? Why is that important? Because let's say if I'm fighting for you and you don't want to fight for yourself, that's so much baggage, right? I don't care as much. It's your battle. I'm just helping you out. You're just dead weight. It's much more helpful if you're helping me out. So on top of that, if I'm trying to stage a coup d'etat and like I'm trying to usurp a government and then the constituents that I'm trying to put in power don't even want the power, then what do I have to do? Do I have to stay in power? Or is that just messing up? Is that just a failure? And we don't know of too many events during this time that would have transitioned from a freedom fighter to the Revolutionary Army. But I think there is one, and it might be Okio Kingdom, or Okio Kingdom, where that was where Nami was from, and it was like destroyed, and all that was left was Nami. It could be that Dragon was trying to instigate a coup d'etat there, and that might be also where he garnered the world's most dangerous criminal, because he destroyed the whole island, destroyed, with an asterisk, but there might have been some kind of issue where he was trying to fight for the freedom of that place, but they didn't want to help out, and that what changed him. And
that's why it failed.
And the only reason why I'm going back to that, because I don't think there's many other missing plot points that we haven't solved yet, or like been introduced yet, that's in that timeline that would create that change of freedom fighter to Revolutionary Army, because you would need like a significant event. Oda can make one up, sure. He could make up a completely random island, a completely random thing. But Okio Kingdom, I think, fits the timeline, right?
I mean, it could, but then again, it could also just be Ohara in general, right?
It could be Ohara. That's true.
Because after Vegapunk says, "Wait, I thought you hated war," he says, "I'm going to raise an army that can fight them head on. Just watch, Vegapunk. I'll change the world." So it sounds like Ohara was the event that caused him to create the revolutionaries. It wasn't like anything else. I mean, it could be anything, or like it could be things that just piled on top of this, but it really seems like Ohara was the turning point.
You know what? I agree with what you said. Like, I think that this could very well be, this is the catalyst point for the Revolutionary Army. But the thing I'm drawing back to is, he says, I'm going to raise an army, and wait till officials, but I'm going to raise an army that can fight them head on. But the Revolutionary Army is not fighting them head on. They're all about espionage. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is him as the freedom fighter. He's the head of the freedom fighters. So this could be, I'm going to raise an army. At this time, he's a freedom fighter. But a year later, it's the Revolutionary Army. And it could be, again, I'm going back to what you said, like, this could be the changing point. But it's interesting because, like, the fighting head on, it's like, that's exactly what people, were like, oh, Dragon isn't isn't like a big deal. Like, take him out of your top 30 because Sabo's the one who's actually doing stuff, because Sabo's actually fighting head on, whereas Dragon never wanted to do that from our interpretation of it. He's always been about espionage, inserting himself into a place and bolstering people to fight for themselves, not fighting head on. So it is an interesting wording here, but again, it could just simply just be what you said. This is the catalyst point, but I'm curious to know, because why not just call it the Revolutionary Army from the very beginning? Why even call it the Freedom Fighter? I feel like that might actually be a significant thing.
Or maybe he isn't even the leader of the Freedom Fighters. There's
True,
also that.
But it says head. Doesn't it say head of the Freedom Fighters?
I think, let me see.
It says head of the Freedom Fighters.
Head of the Freedom Fighters. In a couple different translations, it says chief officer.
Chief officer's head.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But CEO? I mean, isn't Sabo the chief of the revolutionaries?
No, he's the chief staff. Chief of staff, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Different. Like, I really do feel like Ohara is the breaking point for Dragon, especially since he does have, like, closer ties. Like, this isn't just, like, a random island.
True.
This is his friend's island. This is an acquaintance.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody, like, killed Nami in her whole hometown, like, I feel like Luffy wouldn't be too happy about that.
Yeah.
So that would be a pretty big changing point for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, and we didn't really see it in this chapter, but even Vegapunk said, like, when he saw the books in the lake, he started bawling his eyes out.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, this is, like, I feel like this is a major point in history. But past since we see, like, Dragon forming the Revolutionaries, we see everybody's reaction to it, too. We see how everybody is tied to Dragon, or at least this information. Nami bringing up Luffy's dad, because I don't think she has any real input to it. Usopp brings up Elbaf, Robin with Dr. Clover and Dragon. And then we have Frankie with Kuma, and Sanji with Vegapunk, or Sanji with Ivankov. The funny one that I pointed out was that, well, Frankie pointed out Kuma saying, wait, why did you modify him then? Why did you modify him so much? And then Shaka pretty much just ignores him. Like, he pays Frankie no mind whatsoever. And I'm like, yo, like, are we ever going to touch on Kuma? Like, is that going to be a thing? And that could lead to the end of the chapter where they lead them away, but it's like, damn, all right.
Yeah, I think Kuma's stuff is probably at the tail end of the story, right? Because it seems like Shaka clearly wanted to walk us through a story, so much so that I feel, let's see, I feel like 1067 is just going to continue on this this same pattern of stories that we're learning here, right? Like, maybe the script is flipped, and then on Luffy's end they learn, because Bonnie's there. So I think whenever a Kuma situation comes up, it's going to be primarily with Bonnie, and then Frankie gets filled in later. I don't know, but if it's Kuma related, it has to be Bonnie in the scene. It wouldn't make sense to give us exposition on Kuma and then not have Bonnie there for it, unless it's like Bonnie's situation is already resolved, which it isn't yet.
So. Yeah, no. Even by the end of the chapter, she's like, wait, Vegapunk, Kuma, why? I hate you.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Vegapunk goes on with this story of Ohara, and then we learn that there was a man with bandages in Ohara that was helping, or at least leading, the giants to pull the books out of the lake. Right. And Robin just pops the question saying, wait, that giant captain, he's Saul, isn't he? And he says, yep, he's in hiding right now, so I can't confirm anything. And then, Robin, worst Straw Hat, we're getting some, really bad scenes with her in there.
No.
Really bad panels. Definitely not sad at all. And then she says, thank you, Vegapunk. Thank you for not letting Ohara's sacrifice be in vain. Which is something I didn't think Robin would say. Because in the beginning of the chapter, she's like, wait, who are you to, like, talk about any of this or talk about Ohara? And then he's like, well, I know Clover. I was there. I shed tears for them. And also Saul is alive, and I'm using their research. And it's like, all right, you know what, Vegapunk, you're a pretty fine guy. And now that we're revealed to Saul being alive, what do you think about it? Do you feel like it's a fake out? Do you feel like it's justified? Did you think he was alive to this point too? Like how what's your input on this?
Yeah, so I had a separate Aokiji power thing that explained this, but going back to the professor thing, I think one way or another, I thought that there was going to be some survivor. Honestly, in hindsight, Saul made the best sense. I didn't necessarily put weight in one way or the other because truthfully, it didn't feel like it would become relevant in this way, which is like, that's like the main thing when anyone comes up with theory. It's like, they speak it into existence, but you don't necessarily know when it will come into existence. And like this happened so abruptly and in such a way that like I didn't even expect it to happen like this.
Yeah.
But Saul being alive, I think it doesn't feel bad. I think it feels good. I think
best fake out death.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just gonna immediately, in my chat and the live reactions, like, is he the man marked by flames? It's a possibility. He's bandaged for sure. In general, this entire thing felt so good because amongst all the lore, amongst all the conversations, amongst all the factors and variables and factions being talked about and discussed here and story, Oda managed to guide us through this chapter via Robin's face, like her reactions to things, like she was asking the guiding questions. Like you just said, Shaka just largely just ignored Frankie, but it's because Robin was guiding the conversation. And then to end on this like face of her, like it's almost like she turned back into a child again, like when she was a kid and was interacting with Saul. Like it's like this whole time she was having this this facade of being an adult who's like protective of Ohara because that's been her entire role. She was the solo the only survivor of Ohara left to burden the gravity of knowledge that she alone carried throughout the world. And if she died, if she failed all of Ohara. And then for that weight to be lifted off by Vegapunk of all people, it's like that gratitude, one, but then two, like she doesn't feel alone anymore, which is her entire childhood. And then three, it's like, bro, Saul was the GOAT. Like,
dude,
yeah.
The one thing that I think would like bring actual tears to the chapter is while she was smiling, if she like whispered like the Darishi laugh, I'm like, oh god. If we just had like a small dialogue where she tries to say like the Darishi laugh, I would lose my mind. Like, game over.
I would have closed the laptop. I would have closed everything.
Ended the stream, stopped the video. Like, all right, we need to take 5, guys. It's too much.
I would have just sat in the corner and started crying, bro. And then I feel if they don't do it in the anime, that's an L, bro. They're definitely gonna have Robin going to.
And I gotta say it right now, man. Like, when I was growing up as a kid, because I've been reading and watching One Piece for like almost 20 years now, and I just gotta say, but maturing is accepting that Robin is better than Nami.
Yeah.
Robin, I could just go over there like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, and I mean, and Robin's always been. I mean, I'm a knowledge kind of guy, right?
Yeah, Robin's great, dude. Robin, she's really grown on me throughout the series, and she's a great Straw Hat.
Yeah, Robin. Yeah, we don't take Robin slander.
Yeah, no, I used to slander Robin all the time. Let me tell you, I changed my ways. No more Robin slander here. I used to laugh at Ohara, but now I look at it with a tear being shed every time.
Yeah, and not to segue out of the Robin thing, something I realized was something I glazed over first read of the chapter was that whole thing I was talking about, the distinction of scholar and doctor.
Yeah.
Shaka's here saying, and I want to wait for the officials, but he says, it's my nature as a scholar. And I'm like, that's an interesting thing. Because, like, do all the Vegapunks, this is Shaka saying this, do all the Vegapunks
see themselves as scholars?
Like, yeah, because Here's another interesting thing. This earlier Vegapunk said, Shaka said, it's in reference to the books. He said, it's all in my head. All the research that they had, it's all in my head.
Yeah.
They've continued their research. Do you think that's exclusive to Shaka?
No, I don't think so.
So you think Lilith, Edison, Pythagoras, they also have the information as well?
I think all of the Vegapunks have information of it, because we also have to like keep in mind, like, Grant, like, we don't know how Vegapunk split himself into 6 people. Like, did he cut his brain into 6 pieces and give them away? And if they did they restore certain memories? Do they have a portion of it? Do they all share it? We have no clue. But what we do know is that the original Vegapunk is the one that went to Elbaf.
Yes.
So if the original Vegapunk went to Elbaf, it would make sense if the 6 different Vegapunks who are like, you know, the OG Vegapunks split into 6, it would make sense if they all had some information of Ohara and like the text there. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. It could go either way. I don't think it would really affect too much.
I think another thing I just realized off of what you said, in this chapter we get definitive details that Vegapunk actually ages. Like, a lot of people thought that Vegapunk could have been like Void Century even, right? But like we see 30 or 22 years ago, that Vegapunk and that Vegapunk aged to this Vegapunk, and seemingly like from what Bonnie said, these other Vegapunks just didn't exist when Bonnie was there, at least. So
yeah.
That was just a quick interesting point, that like, you know, when on Karakuri Island, that actually is his childhood place. It's interesting. Damn,
I didn't even realize. I kind of forgot that people thought that he was from the Void Century for a minute, to be honest.
Yeah, no, like I mean, even with the satellite, the satellites thing, people were thinking like, oh, he just uploads, downloads, whatever, you know, that kind of thing, which isn't too far-fetched after we started getting some details. But I think especially now that's more broken off. And I was just realizing that if we're power scaling foreheads off of knowledge, Dr. Tsukimi ain't that smart.
Dr. Tsukimi's kind of smart, but Vegapunk definitely dwarfs him, right?
Yeah, definitely dwarfs in the forehead department. And
the forehead too strong.
Yeah, and we were gonna go over to the last few panels with the whole splitting the brain thing, but just before that, when Vegapunk leaves and he like starts dragging them by their feet, it says, "There's something I want to show you." What do you think he wants to show them?
So initially I was kind of hoping it would be Kuma related, but I don't think that's going to happen considering how much of a tangent he's on with the Void Century. So I feel like it's probably something that has to do with that. Maybe it's the machinery that he found. If it's not the robot, maybe it's even a devil fruit tree. I'm not entirely sure. I'm hoping it is something devil fruit related, considering Usopp and Frankie are here. And those are 2 characters that I'm you know, most likely putting my money on for getting a potential devil fruit, or at least giving something that they own a devil fruit, with Usopp and his Kabuto, maybe Frankie with the Sunny. Like, I'm not too sure. But I am wondering if it will be devil fruit related, or it's just Void Century related, since he is on this entire spiel here. Do you have any particular guess on this?
No, I don't really have like an idea. I was like, oh, is he just gonna show them like where Luffy and everything is? But like that wouldn't make sense either. And I'm like, what could he possibly have? And like you said, like devil fruits make sense, but I don't know. It's like there's something I want to show you, and we're talking about the Void Century. Like, is he just gonna show him Saul? Like,
Saul's dead body. Actually, this is where we were hiding him.
Yeah, I mean, earlier he says like, oh, he's in hiding. I can't really tell you, right? That's kind of what he says. I can't confirm anything.
Yeah.
But like, what is he just gonna show that like Professor Clover's? I don't know. It's weird, right? Maybe he recreated Ohara on his island. That'd be kind of cool.
Watch him like make like you said, like he recreates Ohara to an extent. And he's like, hey, here's Ohara's library, but VR made into Egghead Island.
Yeah, there's definitely like a few different routes this can go. But I think that's like the biggest question I have. I'm like, 1067 is gonna be. Yeah, exactly. Like something 1067 is gonna be so crazy already with everything that we're getting, and then Vegapunk's just like, after everything that we've seen, we've heard, more. He's told us, he's like, there's something I want to show you. Dude. None of this bullshit that you're asking me. Like, I'm like, take me away.
An episode straight out of Yu-Gi-Oh, bro. Like when Yugi's like pulling out trap card. Here's my spell, though. We're like, I got something else here for you, Kaiba. So speaking of that, though, 1067. We go to the next part of the chapter where we see Luffy and his group, and they're trying to activate that giant robot. And I made a note of this in my review video, but Luffy's like, or I guess Chopper's like, hey, this might be voice activated. Luffy calls it Robonosuke. And I'm like, all right, little Wano reference going on there. Whatever. Well, we'll move on. And then, Vegapunk sticks to the robot. And he's like, yo, that's just like Kinemon. And it's like, wait a minute. The Wano references are coming out. And, I've been a big advocate that we will get more Wano flashback, or even the events of Wano moving on in the story. And I was like really hoping that this chapter might have something Wano related. But with the references, I'm either hoping for Wano next chapter, or even like a Wano cover page story, which is something that you said you yourself were leaning towards. And do you have anything towards like these small off comments, or you think they're just kind of like gags? Because they kind of are gags, right?
No, I think Wano is supposed to connect more ways than one. I think this is just like a fun thing because when we first got introduced to Vegapunk, not first, but like on Punk Hazard, it was Vegapunk's dragon that Kinemon was half attached to. And here we go with the actual Vegapunk being half attached to a Void Sentry creation, which is like, I don't know what that's saying about this Vegapunk, but this Vegapunk is very goofy, but he's not dumb, obviously. And the Robonosuke thing, what I thought was more interesting is, who is saying move Robo King?
Chopper, I think.
Is it Chopper?
It seems like Chopper's saying it.
Because it's all the way on the left side, because he says move Robo, and then it says move Robo King. And I'm like, it's not Jinbei, it's not Bonnie. So I guess, it is Chopper.
I think it has to be Chopper, especially since the dialogue box is cut off from Luffy.
Yeah.
And Chopper's the only other one talking in the panel, too. I mean, minus Bonnie, who has her mouth open, but her dialogue box is very different.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, like, I don't know what... So... Here's the interesting part, right? If you draw that parallel, what put Kinemon in that situation?
Law.
What's Law's power?
Law has the Ope no Mi.
But what is Law's power? Like, what if you were to like summarize like the gist of his power? How would you describe it?
It is a surgeon's devil fruit on crack.
and that is like a way that we've been told to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's a surgeon, you get medical knowledge, you can use it that way, but that doesn't necessarily describe what his power does. If I were to describe it, I'd say that Law has space-time powers, right? He can just warp space and time and just poof things to each other. And then you get that parallel. Here we go. We see Vegapunk saying, perhaps space-time bent mid-warp. It's almost like like if we were to do that full parallel of Kinemon stuck in a dragon, Vegapunk stuck in this ancient thingy, and if Law is the power that put Kinemon in that situation, then is Law's power actually just space-time manipulation? Is that what's being had here or being said here? And Vegapunk is exploring what Law's power truly is, space-time manipulation, because that's what seems. And then even when you look at when his body appeared there, it's like, it's not a room, but it's like, it's almost like a wave, like a sonar thing. And it's like, it's interesting because we just breeze by. Perhaps space-time bent mid-warp. And it's like, whoa, back it up. What are we doing with space-time? And I think Masha's the one who brought that to my attention, because I completely just breezed by that. But now that you said the parallel, I'm like, oh man, is he trying to like make Law's power or something like that?
He gets the immortality surgery so he doesn't die.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the one character that activates, because it's like it's that Chekhov's gun. Like, it's got to be used at some point. Like it has to be used at some point. Somebody's gonna use it. We just don't know who.
And then now that I think about it, I mean, flash forwarding to the last panel of the thing where we see that he chopped off his head. The upper, like 90% of his goddamn head is gone. And it's replaced with an apple, which obviously is a reference to Newton and gravity and that kind of thing. But we talked about how, like, if you were to take his brain and separate it out, and even if you looked at like actual brain anatomy, which his brain doesn't have normal brain anatomy, but if you were to split it up, you could get the situation where you have wrath, violence, good, like thinker, wisdom. Like, you could break up the brain in those portions. But now that I'm making that parallel space-time manipulation Law's thing, is it possible that he recreated Law's power and that's how he like chopped up his brain?
That could be a thing, considering the fact that Law was a warlord, and we know that Vegapunk experimented, or at least has these seraphims based on DNA of the warlords. It wouldn't be super far-fetched, right? Because people are like, hey, maybe Law has a seraphim somewhere. Like, maybe it's out there chilling. But, like, what if he doesn't? What if he just actually copied his Delafruit instead?
I just thought of a more crazy question.
What's up?
Law, Opi Opi no Mi, Vegapunk, Opi Opi no Mi. Who wins?
Vegapunk.
Well,
I don't know. Like, I feel like the utility aspect of it would be better suited for somebody who's smart. But I mean, Law has the raw physical strength that I feel like Vegapunk probably doesn't have. Like, I don't think Vegapunk's out here whipping out Haki, Awakening, all that crazy stuff. But I mean, I feel like he'd find ways to like fix the gap or fill the gap with his technology and his brains. But
yeah,
I mean, it's like it's brain versus brawn. Like, who would win, right?
It's also like,
and both can only take you so far.
Yeah, and something that I always talked about was like, Vegapunk needs some kind of self-defense a defense mechanism, because they're so smart. Like, they can't just be like rolling up on Punk Hazard with Caesar there as a Logia and just not have a defense. But like, apparently that's what he did. And now I'm just like kind of confused, because it's like, this Vegapunk that I'm looking at, which I can tolerate way more than the first version with the forehead, but like, why is he so nonchalant? Like, how does he live? Because like, Luffy lives, like, look at this when you look at this panel, it's like Luffy and Vegapunk are twins,
they're chilling, bro.
Like, they're both blasting off, having the time of their life.
The thing is, I mean, yeah, Vegapunk knows that this is Dragon's son, that Luffy's probably a good guy. But imagine Vegapunk doing this with any other Yonko. like replace Luffy and Chopper with, I don't know, like a good comparison would be like King and not even Queen. Like, imagine not King, Kaido and Ulti.
Yeah.
Just blasting off. You have Big Mom and Perospero blasting off. You have Shanks and Ben Beckman like blasting off. No, like, he's so nonchalant. And I feel like it is because it's Dragon's son and he doesn't feel threatened by them. and that's probably the main reason why. Or we could go back to him like chopping his brain into pieces. Who's to say that Vegapunk here even has much of a brain left? Like what if he actually doesn't have anything in there, right?
Yeah, like he's so okay, so like
just actually lobotomized.
Yeah. It could, but the thing is, like, he's talking coherently.
Yeah,
right?
he's talking and he knows information. Like it's interesting. Like there's so many wacky ways this could go that you can't really pinpoint it. Like we can make guesses all day, but what's actually gonna happen? Who really knows at this point, right? Like who could have imagined OG Vegapunk having the size of Manhattan, like a head the size of Manhattan, in a dragon reveal panel, right?
I low-key got the Einstein part because I was like, man, I thought Vegapunk was gonna have Einstein stuff.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't there last chapter, but then we got a full force this chapter, which it just makes so much sense. It honestly wouldn't have made sense with many. The only other thing I was like, maybe like Stephen Hawkins, like that could make sense. Like the original Vegapunk's like resigned to a wheelchair type of situation, and so that's why he has satellites. But you know, I guess Vegapunk's self lobotomizing him, like, and then like that is, I guess that's another route, right? It's gonna be interesting because another thing that that's noteworthy is Shaka through and through is the leader. Even in this chapter, told us everything, all the information's in his head. He's the one who spoke to Dragon, and it's almost as if like the conversation that Shaka had with Dragon in the previous chapter is the same like carry on conversation that Dragon had with this Vegapunk in the flashback.
Oh, here's a good prediction, or maybe not a good prediction, but here's a possibility. Yeah. What if when Shaka takes off his helmet, he's actually a handsome version of younger Vegapunk? Like what he would imagine his ideal self to be.
Okay.
Like imagine like Vegapunk from a long time ago, the crazy tongue and whatever, but this time it's more reserved. Like his features are pulled back, he still has the glasses, but he's just handsome. Like it's the version of him he always envisioned himself to be.
He wore a helmet so that his brain doesn't continuously grow.
Yeah, it limits his brain power. He's like, all right, we gotta tame this. My back was getting a little bit too crazy.
I mean, that is the big thing, right? Like, we talked about this a little bit on my stream where it was just like, we have all the faces. Oops, sorry. We have all the faces, but we don't have Shakas. And
he's got to be handsome.
Shakas?
He's literally, like, I feel like there is a 99% chance that Shaka is a handsome Vegapunk. There is no way he isn't. Like, I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
I'm like borderline thinking like, yo, especially with how they left things with Dragon and Vegapunk like on Ohara, like maybe I said this on my live stream, but like I'm gonna double down. What if I think Shaka looks like Dragon. I think Vegapunk just made a Dragon clone. And it was like supposed to be backup. Like he thought Dragon was going to actually die or something, whatever. And going to your idea, like maybe he was envious of what Dragon looked like, right? Like he's just like, man, this guy is so smart and he looks normal. Yeah, and he looks normal as fuck. Why can't I be like that? And then he just made it and then transferred his like primary knowledge into that instead of himself.
I mean, which is like be a possibility.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just can't see a Dragon clone.
This is true.
I'm hung up on a Dragon. Like, imagine getting a Dragon clone when we know nothing about the original Dragon, and also knowing that this Dragon clone is Vegapunk, though. Like, we're not even gonna learn anything about Dragon from the clone, really.
It would be interesting though if, like, you know, Dragon. Okay, hold on. Let me paint this picture. Dragon, Shaka looks like Dragon. Dragon ends up or Shaka ends up connecting with Luffy, and then it gets revealed like it's so Luffy has no idea what he looks like. He's wearing the mask the whole time, but when around the time when Shaka starts dying, like for whatever reason, like the mask comes off and it looks like Dragon, and then it's like Luffy and this like connection here, and it'll have like a Dragon dying for Luffy, and then that will instigate like a further connection later on when we get the real Dragon. I don't know. It was like a weird thing.
Luffy does not care about Dragon though. Like that's the thing. True. Like even if Luffy doesn't even know what Dragon looks like, right?
No, he knows what he looks like.
Does he?
Yeah. That was like I think after Zoe or something. He's like, wait, that's what my dad looks like.
Really? What chapter?
Yeah.
Or what situation? I guess is a better way to put it.
I think it's chapter 823.
823.
Yeah.
So in chapter 823, Luffy sees what his dad looks like.
Yeah, in the newspaper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like 823 or 824. Let's see.
Yeah, because my main thing is that like Luffy has never shown any interest in his father.
Yeah.
Like even in this chapter, Vegapunk's like, "Hey, by the way, your dragon son. I always knew you'd come here," and then that was pretty much it. Like Luffy didn't even care whatsoever. Yeah. He kind of like took that information. And he was like, "Hey, how are you floating?" Like. It seemed like such background information. Like his dad has never been at the forefront. Even when Garp was like, "Hey, by the way, you have a dad," Luffy was like, "Oh, cool." Like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. I never knew I had a dad.
It was 824, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says it's the first time I've seen him. He doesn't look like me. More importantly, I'm worried about Sabo. Like he doesn't even care about his dad in the newspaper.
Yeah, that's true. It's weird though. Like my point earlier when I was saying that is that there would be some bond created, like some kind of respect between Shaka and Luffy.
Yeah.
But it's a stretch idea. I'm excited, but like who could Shaka look like for it to be like meaningful? Is it just going to be a randomly good looking person, or is it going to be like a clone of something? And I feel like the clone one makes a lot of sense, but like your point is too, they didn't just work on cloning, they worked on modification. So like it easily could just be he just like turned himself into a Giga Chad, right?
Another thing with that too, like the reason I'm leaning towards Giga Chad Vegapunk is also because like none of the other satellites are clones to our knowledge, right?
People are I think York specifically think that like maybe Bonnie was the foundation, but yeah, overall I think they're not like, copies of anything. I guess it's
kind of similar to Bonnie because she eats a lot. We have we have one that kind of looks like Uta, and then we have Pythagoras and Edison, so I just feel like it's not clones.
True,
but it could be though, right? Like it could be. I mean, Uta is canon, so maybe he did get inspired. Maybe, York is Bonnie and Rouge combined together. Like, I could see that. But it's just weird.
Definitely weird. I like, that's the thing, though. It's like this chapter left me with so many questions. Not questions. A lot of people say, like, oh, the chapters leave you with more questions than answers. It's like this is fun. This is so fun. Oh yeah, right now.
This is a great chapter.
This chapter. I think all of these chapters. I don't know how Oda like is doing this right now. Like Oda's just in the basement, in my basement right now, just putting out cooking up fire,
bro. Like his house, his apartment, his family's houses. They're all on fire right now.
Yeah, like
he's cooking up hard. We're not even fighting in this chapter, right?
Yeah, there's no fighting. I think you said it earlier, like we barely moved. Oh, this is before the recording. Like we didn't even move in this chapter.
Yeah, we like if you have a pedometer on yourself and you're in this chapter, you move maybe like 5 feet.
Yeah, and even still, this chapter felt like one of my videos where it was just like connections drove the chapter. Like there was not like a singular like focal point. It was just like, yeah, Ohara obviously, but like it was just like, and by the way, Saul's alive, and by the way, I'm a freedom fighter who's gonna take on the world government.
Here's Vegapunk with an apple on his head
and a giant forehead previously, and it's
don't diss the head, bro.
You're getting thrown so many different elements in this chapter and so much substance, and it's so fun. And like I don't get how like because like okay. Think about it like this. Imagine screenshotting this, right? Screenshotting this last panel, this last page, right? And like saying this is your favorite TV show, this is your favorite manga of all time. And like in Naruto, Bleach, they're like, this is, you like this? Like, you know what I mean? Like you talk to like someone who watches like,
bro?
Game of Thrones and like I don't know what, you know, Western popular TV, they're just like Marvel fans, you know, Marvel's like this,
yeah, like a comic book
is
reader
peak fiction.
And then we have like Albert Einstein with the giant tongue and an apple saying, "Gadzooks, we've flown too far. Save us, Quasar." Like, bro, what? What are you reading, dude?
Yeah, we're definitely built different, but
it's funny because like to us, to people who like read this week to week, like this is an important chapter. Like, this is big. This
is a huge chapter. Like
it's bigger than his forehead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so crazy that Oda somehow like one way or another, like reality has to meet us, right? Like, did Oda like is manipulating us, right? Like he's definitely like tricking us to care about these things, because like I feel like if I saw this in Naruto, I would just drop the series. You know what I mean? Like, but like it's in One Piece and this is like on brand and like I'm invested. You know what I mean? Gadzooks, we've flown too far. Like save us, Quasar. Like it's so goofy, but like I'm here for it. Oh god, Oda
it's a good
has
chapter.
Eating out of his hands, bro.
Well, with that being said, Par, do you want to do any final shouting outs to yourself before we end off this discussion?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, you know, all jokes aside, let me adjust the camera so that, you know, people get the message, is you know, me and Sai, we have these great conversations every week, and I feel like we're on the pulse of what Oda, the story that we're seeing and reading and all that stuff. Like every week I feel like we get a flavor of what the next chapter is and all that stuff. Despite us having such different takes, and honestly that might be why we end up having these like really fun conversations. And like with that, like I think what's really another really cool thing that I wish I could share more of with you, Sai, but like neither of us have the time to do this, is like the theory videos that I put out, like with the Pluton and then the Void Sentry thing. I think a lot of people are having fun in the comment section. Like I'm reading it like before we got into call and after, of like how much it relates to these current chapters, but then also like, you know, like theories being serious or whatever. Like this is what I love doing. It's right where we just like sit here and we just roll off ideas and have fun with it. So if you guys enjoy this conversation and want to see more theories, that's what my channel is for. But honestly, I just enjoy coming on to this at like 5 a.m. every Friday.
Guys, this is super late, man. Like for my time, like Par said 5 a.m. For me, it's 4 a.m. We're just here talking about One Piece super late. The chapter just came out and here we are.
Yeah, and sometimes if we're not up late enough, we end the night with Valorant or something like crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We just end up feeding and we end up losing.
Whoa, we're clean with it. Hello,
we're okay. We're okay. Don't push the luck too far.
Yeah. But yeah. So like with that, I just again like every chapter is making me like more and more sentimental when it comes to like these streams and conversations where I'm just like, bro,
one day it'll all be over.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everyone in the chat. I know it's getting old, but like we're gonna get some shit chapters in the future, and I'll just you know won't be. No, I'm joking, but we'll be here, good or bad, no matter how. We'll be here to hold it down. So, shout out to you. Thank you, Sai, for having me. Even though I pushed the stream later, but yeah.
So with that being said, one shout out to myself. Self promo is important. You can check me out at youtube.com/c/BDA Law. That is where I'm going to be doing all my content going forward. You guys heard it here first. And thank you all for making it to this part of the video. We'll catch you all next time. Have a great night.